realization of freedom of association and collective bargaining. The recently held ILO governing body approved a strategy for the promotion and implementation of the right to collective bargaining. And this, together with a greater focus on freedom of association, will allow the ILO to step up its effort for the effective realization of these two enabling rights. At a time when so many workers are grappling with rising cost of living and declining purchasing power, the tripartite meeting on living wages to be held in 2024 should be instrumental in shaping consensus and enhancing ILO leadership, advocacy, and support to constituents in this critical area. The extension of social protection is another common priority in the fight against poverty and the fight against inequalities. The ILO will therefore leverage the momentum created by the Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transitions to build and finance social protection systems. Dear colleagues, I would like to welcome the importance you attach to the promotion of a safe and healthy working environment as a new fundamental right. The governing body adopted a global strategy to promote the ratification and the implementation of the two new core conventions. In our continent, 22 countries have ratified Convention 155, and 16 have ratified Convention 187. I really count on your support to help us increase the ratification and implementation rates of these instruments. The urgency of promoting gender equality and addressing violence and harassment in the world of work is another priority that I share. To date, we have reached 36 ratification of Convention 190, including 25% from African countries. These efforts, I trust, will continue. Last but not least, you call for improving the regulation of digitalization, and that call is timely. The ILO has placed for the 2025 conference agenda a standard-setting double discussion on decent work in the platform economy. This aims to develop a legal framework for a just digital transition with decent work at its core. Dear colleagues, the governing body recently endorsed the establishment of a global coalition for social justice. The coalition will increase multilateral cooperation, partnership, and actions on the ground in order to advance the social justice and decent work for all, the fighting against inequalities, the fighting for equal access to opportunities, the fight against exclusion has to be at the core of our daily work. The coalition's work is also a contribution for the UN Social Summit in 2025 and the post-2030 Global Development Framework, the social summit that we all hope will be endorsed or decided by the resolution of the UN General Assembly by the end of the year or so. And the role of unions in shaping the global coalition is essential. So I really look forward in working closely with you all so to accelerate progress towards social justice and together shape a new social contract. Indeed, we need a new social contract in this world. In closing, let me commend again the President of Ituc-Africa, Modi Giro, and his General Secretary, Kwesi, alongside the team for a sterling contribution to the union movement. To the new leaders who will be elected, let me assure you of my commitment to work with you in our common struggle for a better world, in our common struggle for social justice. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Director General ILO, Mr. Gilbert. Your Excellency, allow me to invite the Secretary General, Central Organization of Trade Union, Ndugu Francis Atwoli. Let's welcome Brother Francis Atwoli.
Thank you very much, my brother. I'll start by recognizing His Excellency the President, William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces in our country. Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Honorable Mia Motley, whom we have just listened to virtually. Our Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection, Sister Florence Bore, the International Labour Organization, Director General, Brother Gilbert Hogbo, the Director of the International Labour Organization, ACTRAF, Sister Maria Elena, Sister Jacqueline Mugo, who is with us here, Executive Director of the Federation of Kenya Employers, Brother Fred Redmond, Secretary Treasurer of the American Federation, or FLCI in brief, short, the General Secretary of the International Trade Union Confederation, Brother Luke Triangle, and the President of the International Trade Union Confederation African Region, Brother Modi Giro. My own brother that we have worked together, Brother Kwesi Adua-Mankwa, the General Secretary of our organization on this continent, ITUC. My brother, the General Secretary of the Organization of the African Trade Unions Unity, Brother Rizik Masood. And also let me take this opportunity to welcome and recognize the managing trustee of our National Social Security Fund that had been built by workers over the years, Brother Koros, the immediate former president of our International Trade Union Confederation globally, Brother Ayuba Waba from Nigeria, the two immediate former coordinators of the PANAF program, Brothers Peter Jensen and Gianno Olata. These are the two guys that developed labor movement on this country by providing education to shop-level leaders, branch secretaries, and those associated with labor movement on our continent. Invited guests, delegates, brothers and sisters. I will try to be very brief so that I don't tire my president, whose schedule is so busy, and he has found time to come out of it to be with us. First and foremost, let me thank you, Your Excellency the President, for our Republic, for finding time out of your busy schedule to be with us this afternoon, and particularly for always creating time for the working people of our country. whenever we call upon you. I remember vividly, Mr. President, that on the 14th February this year, when our organizations, that is the Central Organization of Trade Unions Executive Board, and affiliate general secretaries called on you at State House in Nairobi, you made 4 promises, but I will mention only 3, because the 4th one we are still negotiating. That you committed to fulfill. First, when we invited you to join us during the first May International Labor Day celebrations as Awaka #1 to Uhuru Gardens, to attend and preside over the celebrations during that wonderful day of our year calendar, we saw you in person. You left and you came back at our luncheon and more so to explain to workers how you want to put up houses for Kenyans. Secondly, we requested you kindly to allow us to ask the Director General of the International Labour Organization to invite you to attend the 111th International Labor Day Conference in Geneva. And on receiving the invitation, you responded positively and attended this important annual event of the International Labour Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. And this was a big honor, not only to Kenyan workers, but Africa, as well as making history to our country being the first president to attend the ILC. Thirdly, Mr. President, was our request for you to come and grace today's International Trade Union Confederation African Region Congress, 5th Congress. You also agreed and kept your word. And here you are, Your Excellency. What else do I say? We thank you for keeping your word, Your Excellency. We are aware, we have been in public life, Your Excellency. Very few political leaders who are committed to the ideals of keeping up their words, and you are one of them who keep their, whatever you say, you make sure you are up to it. Let me also take this opportunity, Mr. President, on behalf of Kenyan Trade Union Movement, to humbly welcome all delegates and guests to this important 5th African Ituc Congress in our country, Kenya, and I hope and trust that you will feel, my brothers and sisters, you will all feel comfort while here in this capital of our country, Nairobi. At the same time, let me take this opportunity to thank the government of His Excellency, the President, William Samoei Ruto, whom we are with here, to have waived any payment on visas. All of you, none of you paid any penny on a visa. And if there is any, here he is, you will be refunded your money. And let me tell you, it is his policy, and he has preached it everywhere on the continent, wherever he goes, that he wants Africa of free visas, so that he can be able to promote free movement of persons on this continent, free trade amongst ourselves, to promote inter-trade and ease flow of communication on our continent. That is part of what he has been preaching. We thank you for these bold steps, Mr. President, and continue preaching this. For example, we in the East African community, we don't require somebody visiting Uganda and he has a visa from Uganda or Tanzania or Rwanda or Burundi or Somalia now to come to Kenya and is being asked for another visa. In the same breath, Your Excellency, as a labor leaders, we can attest here today that you remain fearless leader who never shy away from receiving criticisms. Let me tell my colleagues to know that. Considering that I personally, as Francis Atwoli, Secretary General of KOTU, for so many years, I have been one of your great critics to work together and promote workers and Kenyans' interests at large. That is a true reflection of a true democratic leader. When my colleagues all over the world, they were worried that, oh, maybe this will have to be what happens maybe elsewhere, you changed the narrative, it became positive, and you moved closer to us more than any other organization. And we thank you for that. And I think that is a very good example for the young generation and those who aspire to be leaders for the purposes of creating a united nation, a nation that cares about other leaders and respects the views of them, of whatever type from those who are opposed to them. You have also continued, not only that, you didn't stop there. You have also continued to engage workers always. You have given us audience to which we remain grateful as we equally continue championing for the aspirations of working men and women in our country. Most of people say, why is no court talking about the cost of living? Why court is not talking about issues related to taxation and so on? Why court is quiet when people are doing this? But I can assure you, and here the president is, I have time and again engaged the president. He has given us his side of his story, and we have given him our side of story. And we have given ourselves time bound that we expect things to change. I remember when I took over our organization, there were a lot of problems. That is the Central Organization of Trade Unions. It could not afford a ticket, even of one guest or a delegate or whatever. But I can assure you, President, that our organization is one of the powerful organizations on the continent of Africa. And as you see us here, for my brothers and my sisters, we have hosted them as Central Organization of Trade Unions. And this is it shows maturity and more committed leadership to an organization that is able to host brothers and sisters in magnitude numbers as those that you can witness here. This is what also some of our colleagues stand for, like Nigerian Labour Congress, Ghana TUC, and so many other trade unions on the continent do. It's not only KOTU, but we also emulate our brothers from elsewhere, including Senegal, where Brother Mudi Giro comes from. Your Excellency, you extended us this honor by appointing me recently as a member of the Health Insurance Authority to be part of the teams that is spearheading social health reforms in our country. And your government is putting in place some mechanism to make sure that we have a working workers and Kenyans health insurance for all. Let me tell you something, Your Excellency. You might think that is small. We do appreciate. It has been to my dream. And I want to tell those, I wish those who are in my age bracket, and say from 40 years or 35 years now, up to where I am, if you close that door there, and you ask your police officers to carry out inspection in our pockets and in our handbags and extend it to our rooms or our cars, you will be required to have cartons and cartons to fill the tablets of the medicines, capsules, and what type of medicines that these people work with. We live on tablets, we live on medicines, and we need to have a working health insurance authority. And that is why I support that. I will be there. If anything goes wrong, Your Excellency, I will raise an alarm because that is the area of our concern. And even those who are below 35, Your Excellency, for your information, they also require blue tablets. And they need to be, after they get problems with the blue tablets, they require sound health medical insurance authority. Brothers and sisters, Kotu Kenya is honored to host the 5th Congress of the International Trade Union Confederation, Africa, under the theme, Amuka Africa. I want to thank ITC. Amuka Africa. Amuka Africa. To have translated that awake into our national official language of Kiswahili, that let Africa wake up. And that has been your policy, Mr. President. Wherever you have gone, you have highly talked about Amuka Africa, on global financing, on global unity, on global participation in international fora, and in everything that you thought Africa should take a center stage. You have always talked without fear of contradiction, and we support you for that. However, as I have always said, Africa is awake, and as workers, we must always unite, for we have nothing to lose but our chains. In the pursuit of a brighter future for our workers, we must acknowledge the pressing need to build skills across the African continent, because our workforce deserves the opportunity to thrive in an era of rapid change. You can do so if you are working closely with governments. I want to thank governments, not only our government here. When we were in our meeting in Geneva, that is the governing body where I represent workers in this region. Sorry, Sister Jacqueline, it's a little bit painful. But government supported us to make sure that we win a vote to refer the rights to strike to the International Court of Justice. Where there is an arbitration, where people are not understanding, let other people arbitrate us. And if you are not working with governments together, with governments together, they would have left us alone. And that is why there are things under social tripartism that both employers, workers, and governments must move towards one line. And the three are anchored at the International Labour Organization like this. That is why, after our elections and our party lost to his party, to the party of the president, I told my colleagues, I go back to where I belong. Because where I belong is in social tripartism, social dialogue, and an area of collective bargaining. I want to thank our employers. They have talked a lot about cost of living. But I want also, it's unfortunate that when I asked my handlers whether Jacqueline would be coming, there was no that confirmation and so on. Jacqueline would have been able to tell us, because he has been talking about cost of living and so on, which is very good. The employers have someone that they can pass to the expenses of doing businesses. This somebody is a consumer who is a worker. Workers, we have nobody that we can pass to. And that is why we need to come together with the employers as they talk about the cost of living at their own initiative. First of all, say, this is the percentage we are declaring to our suffering workers in this era of high cost of living. We will appreciate, we will thank them, and we will love them. Now, as the world is gearing up towards the COP28 that will be taking place in Dubai, I call upon all of us not to forget the clarion call for just transition that ensures that as we move towards a sustainable future, the rights and well-being of workers are safeguarded. But I have also told my colleagues that just transition does not only mean our areas of comfort being safeguarded by this clarion call. It also means that we are transiting from the current situation of agitation to next level. We cannot continue, remain in the agitation which has been our background for years. We must move to a next level from agitation to articulation so that we can attract both our employers and government to sit down and see what is good for workers and what do we need to have. Furthermore, we must remain true to our commitment of ending gender abuses in our workplaces through forced environments where all workers, regardless of gender, can contribute their talents without fear of discrimination or harassment. At this point, let me thank Mr. President for the further support you have extended to us by constituting a tripartite committee that is now working towards the process of ratifying various international labor conventions in the country, notably Convention number 190 and Convention number 189, to which you have made references to in various addresses that you have made, both locally and across the globe. We kindly ask your government to hasten this process and carry out this ratification as the world is watching us, Your Excellency. Brothers and sisters, it is about time that African continent adopts the high roadmap towards social protection. The well-being of our workers should not be compromised for short-term gains because social protection measures are not only a mark of a civilized society, but also an investment in the stability and resilience of our workforce. And on this note, I want to thank Your Excellency for having said that let us, we in Kenya here, change our contribution to a little bit higher contribution so that when one is retiring, he has something to carry with him at home. I thank you for that. We used not to see that. We used to take the government to court on the same, but I think if that care is taken, then that will be all right. Lastly, I want to appeal also to my colleagues who are here. What we need to do is like what others do. Let government have our money if there is money, but let us also carry out audit on that so that we can complain. Sometimes we make complaints and we don't audit. And when we don't audit, whom do you claim? Brothers and sisters, let me, as I wind up, remind us that in this age of rapid digitization, unions must evolve and fight to remain relevant by inventing new approaches towards membership drive that is so sophisticated and organized for our member sustainability. I want to declare to our brothers here in Kenya and those who are from elsewhere in Africa that I've had a short meeting with the Director General of the International Labour Organization. One of the flags I raised was towards this issue of digitization and digital economy and so on. We need, as leaders, to go to the drawing board and understand it well, and we require a lot of support from the International Labour Organization. I'm happy that the Director General has itemized it as an item of agenda to be seriously discussed at the International Labour Conference. Brothers and sisters, let me end by reminding us that our struggles and triumphs are interconnected across borders. As such, solidarity is our strength, and by uniting with workers worldwide, we amplify our collective voice for justice and fairness. This Congress, therefore, is a pivotal moment for us to reflect on our shared aspirations and renew our total commitment to the cause of workers. We have nothing to lose, but freeing ourselves, and together we shall forge our path towards a more equitable and prosperous future of workers across our continent. Finally, Your Excellency, let me take this opportunity to humbly thank the team behind the success of this Congress. As issues related to security and what have you, Your Excellency, you delivered a very senior Chief of Staff from your office, Josephat Nanok, to be with us. The Minister of Labor gave us Sister Helena Pio, and Dr. William Kiprono from the Ministry of Labor, Dr. Emo Mwanga from Kenya Revenue Authority, and our guests have not complained on any issue of paying taxes on whatever they were carrying. And also Sister Susan Wanjira from Kenya Airports Authority, Brother Kimanzi Mutuk from Directorate of Immigration, to make sure that nobody is harassed at the airport or something like that. And also the Nairobi Regional Commissioner's Office and the officer in charge of police. So our brothers and sisters from outside who are here, they are safe because of the officers you gave us. Lastly, I want to thank my own deputy because they are organizing this workshop when I'm in the GB in Geneva. Brother Benson Okwaro, the chairman of the function, Brother Albert Njeru, together with the colleagues, Reverend Joel Kandie Chebi, Brother Ernest Nadome, as well as Sisters Rebecca Nyatagora, Sister Rosso Mamo, and the entire COTU staff. And I want you to continue doing that good job until we will see our brothers and sisters off. And the medical center must be around, Brother Barasa. We must make sure that whoever becomes sick is attended to immediately. I want to thank you, and I want to thank you, President, once again for finding time to be with us. I know there are a lot of important factions that you skipped because of us. And may God bless you.
Asante sana ndugu Francis Atoli, waziri, karibu.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Prime Minister Madam Maya of Barbados, Mr. Moody Goiro, President of International Trade Union, Confederation Africa, Mr. Kwasi Adu, General Secretary of Ituc-Africa, Mr. Gilbert Hongbo, the Director General of ILO, Brother Francis Atwoli, Secretary General of COTU Kenya, Sister Jacqueline Mugo, the Executive Director of FKE, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to this auspicious occasion of the 5th Congress of the International Trade Union Confederation Africa. I applaud the Central Organization of Trade Unions Kenya for their remarkable efforts in convening this Congress. We assure you of our support while championing for workers' rights and ensuring that workers enjoy decent employment free from discrimination, forced labor, child labor, and hazardous work. Trade unions must remain beacons of strength, hope, and support to not only workers, but also the countries of operation. Distinguished delegates, we appreciate ILO for coming up with such a valuable instrument for managing human relations, engaging in open and constructive discussion, sharing and exchanging of views, and building of consensus around issues is key for lasting solutions and peace. We hold true to our commitment to meet our obligations under the ILO Constitution and to engage the social partners in all matters pertaining employment and labor. Distinguished guests, trade unions must also adjust to the changes and put in place measures to ensure that they leave no workers behind, nor they are left behind. The recruitment strategies and organization of yesteryears may not be instrumental any longer. I urge all the trade unions and delegates here to devise innovative ways and support governments in making this call a reality. It is time to act decisively, and we must all stand up and advance the Director General's call for social justice for all, and which resonates with the ITUC call, Amka Africa. I wish you all robust and fruitful discussions during this 3-day Congress. It is now my singular honor and privilege to welcome His Excellency, the President, Dr. William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya and the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, to make his speech. Karibu sana, Your Excellency. Please stand up and clap for His Excellency. Karibu sana, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. You may take your seats. Let me confirm first that you're all welcome to Nairobi, and you're all welcome to Kenya. Mr. Gilbert Hobo, Director General of the International Labour Organization, Mr. Kwasi Adu Amankwa, General Secretary of Ituc-Africa, Brother Moody, Gairo, President of Ituc-Africa, Sister Martha Molema, Deputy President, Ituc-Africa, my good friend Francis Atwoli, Secretary General of KOTU in Kenya, my dear sister Jacqueline Mugo, the CEO of FKE, Federation of Kenya Employers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Nairobi. I know the Chairman General, Reverend Jebi, has harassed you quite a bit, that you must clap this way, you must do this way. It is true, we are village mates, and he is not very objective when he deals with me. He's biased, so forgive him. And let me also confirm what Francis Atwoli has said, that we are a robust democratic country. We have our differences, but they are not personal. We have different viewpoints, but we are gentlemen enough and ladies enough, moral and cultural duty of welcoming our visitors very, very seriously. Besides, this country hosts archaeological sites that have been acclaimed globally as the cradle of humankind. So every visitor who comes to Kenya from everywhere, Europe, America, Asia, the rest of this continent, when they come to Kenya, they are coming home. So welcome home. And this is why we have been championing the elimination of national boundaries as barriers to integration and greater engagement between people, enterprises, and advocating for open skies throughout Africa, and implementing a visa-free policy to make our brothers and sisters throughout the world to feel at home here in Kenya. Additionally, Kenya is a delightful tourist attraction in every aspect. Even this city has its own share of magical experiences, including a very close canopy, you must have seen it, of forest right here in Nairobi, and a national wildlife park right here, making it a truly unique global destination. Let me, however, warn you that in our national park, we have wild game, leopards, lions, rhinos. And sometimes we have a fence, but sometimes they break out of the fence. So when you do your morning walk, you might find a lion. Please be careful. They are not tamed, they are wild. And I hope you will find time to enjoy magical Kenya in her full splendor. Karibuni sana, Kenya. Thank you very much, Brother Francis Atwoli, for your invitation and for your many kind words. It is indeed true that I have been available and ready to participate in matters pertaining to Kenyan workers, and I've honored your invitations to be with you at important events. But remember, Francis, you didn't say everything. Maybe I will add on that too. You remember we had a conversation when I came and I explained, I took time to explain to you and the leadership of our Kenyan workers that you not only represent the people who are working, but you also represent the jobless. Otherwise, the people who don't have jobs will have nobody to represent them. And I explained to you that I am going to work on a program to have more people, to have jobs, so that you have a bigger number to represent. And I took a long time to explain what we are going to do to create job opportunities so that we can have more workers, more people earning a decent wage. And that is the reason why I told you there are 3 things that I am going to do in my tenure. That number 1, we will have a robust housing program. Not because we are looking for houses necessarily, but because housing creates millions of jobs. And I want to report to you, Secretary General and the leadership of the labor movement here, that in the last 8 months, we have created 120,000 jobs from our housing plan. I will encourage you to go and recruit those people to be members of your movement. Number 2, we're also going to create more jobs around the digital space, the technology space. As I talk to you, Parliament today is passing the NGCDF bill that will create opportunity for ICT hubs in every ward in Kenya, because we are seeking to create digital jobs in every village in Kenya. Again, so that we can have more members of this movement. And number 3, I was having a conversation with the Director General, and he was explaining to me how he found a conversation in Berlin about Kenya's engagement with the German government on bilateral labor agreement that will facilitate more Kenyans to work in Germany as we work on our bilateral labor agreements, so that we can make the labor or migrant workers not a problem, but a solution. So again, we are working in that space to increase the number of people, whether they are working locally, whether they are working in foreign, and whether they are working in remote locations. The whole concept is to create more workers, so that because Kenya is a country of workers. So that commitment I have made, and as I told you, I have kept that commitment. We now have 120,000, and my plan is that by 2027, you will have 500,000 people working. That is the plan. I know the court have said we should go and readjust the law to make it aligned appropriately. That we are going to do, so that the 120,000 people can become 200,000 and can become 500,000 in the next 5 years. Because if we don't engage these people in productive work, they will become a very big challenge to all of us. The young people out there, unless we create real opportunities. And you know, we used to talk about we're going to grow the economy and the economy is going to create jobs. It's now beyond that. We have to be deliberate. We have to be intentional about where we are going to create those jobs. Number two, you remember we had a conversation and you guys told me about old age poverty. And you gave me very stark and serious statistics. You told me how Kenya is not doing well. About, I think we are number 90 something. Uko karibu na mwisho. Yeah? And I promise you, should we continue paying 200 shillings as our contribution to our social, our NSSF? And it wasn't make sense. It wasn't making sense. So finally, we've all agreed that we need a percentage of our salary. The good news, my good brother Atwoli and the Kotu movement and my good sister Jacqueline, is that today we have increased by about 450% our contribution to Social Security. In fact, we are going to double the money that we are saving at NSSF in the next 4.5 years. We will have doubled the money we have collected for 60 years. We are going to double it in just 4.5 years. That is how transformative things become when leaders work together. And that is why I believe in tripartism. It works best when employers, when workers, and when governments work together. I was very pleased to meet Luca earlier. Luca Triangle. Sorry, I gave you the other name. And I was fascinated by his name until he came to talk here. And his first point was about people striking. So I started to wonder, has this man come to organize a strike in Nairobi? But Atwoli told me, no, he's just talking about the principle. So I said, okay. But let me say, Luca, you are welcome to Kenya, and your name is very fascinating. The reason for this is that our governing mandate, which is based on the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, identifies the radical enhancement of productivity of labor as the engine for our nation's economic takeoff. The best way to stimulate economic vigor, increase incomes, enhance savings, and promote investment is by focusing on men and women who work. The only way to reduce poverty and inequality is by attending to workers and their well-being. Our country is not short of people who work hard. The gap that exists is that of making sure that adequate arrangements exist to ensure that workers have decent jobs, safe and dignified working environment, a fair regime of income and remuneration which rewards skill and productivity, a robust social support, including healthcare and dignified retirement, and a macroeconomic environment which effectively manages the cost of living through sustainable interventions and especially support for greater production. And it is the same, I made a commitment that we are going to enhance our productivity and our production, especially in agriculture. I'm very happy that this year our agricultural production has gone up by 40% because of the interventions we are making, so that we can walk the journey in real numbers of reducing the cost of living. You remember I also promised you that health is not going to be a preserve and is not going to be a luxury for those who can afford. Our universal health coverage this time round is going to take care of those who can afford and is going to make sure that those who cannot afford are carried along by government spending on them. It is also very clear that our bottom-up economic transformation agenda is also a radically pro-labor and boldly worker-centric program of action aimed at creating millions of jobs and lifting tens of millions of Kenyans out of poverty into the middle class. Every intervention, as I have enumerated, under the priority sectors, which form the pillars of our plan, testifies to this. We are therefore highly committed and interested in sustaining a dynamic relationship with the leadership of the national labor movement in order to keep abreast of the aspirations and of our workers and the most salient concerns as it pertains to their development and their well-being. I also congratulate you for your successful effort to host this Congress, which is a tremendous honor for our country and which demonstrates your vision for the labor movement, commitment to serve workers throughout the continent, and your highly developed networking and consensus building credentials. Our bottom-up economic transformation agenda is not worker-centric by accident. Kenya is a workers' country. Our freedom struggle is closely tied with the struggle by Africans for freedom to work in safety and dignity, whether on their land or in industries and other places. Given that colonialism based on forced labor was slavery in all but name, our freedom struggle was always about the fundamental right of Africans to have their personal dignity honored and their economic productivity acknowledged. This is why our foremost celebrated freedom fighters were also labor union leaders and activists, and you know that. Today, we are governed employers, and by implication, government, under Article 21 of our Constitution, the right to fair labor practices implicitly reflects the tripartism which forms the foundation of labor relations. The Labor Relations Act, which brings out this principle in greater detail to guide daily interactions in the workplace, is a case in point. It is clear then that social dialogue and tripartism are fundamental for sound industrial relations reflected in robust, collective, bargaining agreements, and similar instruments, and critical to the realization of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda in terms of social justice, job creation, and the rapid attainment of shared prosperity amongst Kenyans. With 87 registered trade unions in active operation, it is evident that Kenya recognizes the place of trade unions in defining our national character as a people who are not afraid to work their way to freedom and prosperity. We are, above all things, a nation at work. This being the case, we are fully seized of our mandate to advance the social dialogue agenda in honor of the solidarity with which our labor movement has promoted, sustained, and defended our freedom and our development. Measures like the full implementation of the NSSF Act 2013 was certainly overdue, requiring urgent action in order to guarantee dignified retirement for workers and the protection of retirees from old age poverty, as I have enumerated earlier. It is important that our social security regime attains a standard that exceeds the minimum established by the International Labour Organization under Convention number 102 of 1952. And I think we are heading there. Our determination to actualize the best standards of worker protection and welfare has inspired us to endeavor to align our labor policy framework with all international labor standards that have been ratified by Kenya, including the upgrading of our occupational safety and health, as well as work injury benefits regime. As we do this, we urge closer collaboration with the International Training Center for International Relations for purposes of benchmarking and capacity building in order to make our labor movements responsive, dynamic, and effective. The work done so far in the education and health sector points to a promising future for social dialogue and greater improvement in terms of promoting